where I am reading all of Eden by FREI live on Facebook and on YouTube, and assuredly the recorded clips that also make their way onto Instagram, IGTV. And in fact, if, as last time, what happened was that the streaming quality was actually quite poor, I noticed only in retrospect. It's had to do with the streaming software I'm using, Restream. It happens sometimes. So if this happens again and you find that you would like to watch and listen to the reading, but that the picture quality in the live stream and therefore in the video clip that sits on YouTube is simply to, and therefore also on the Facebook, on my personal Facebook page, is simply on a good enough quality, then look me up, Sebastian Michael, look me up on Instagram, where you will get the recorded clips in pristine quality. That's just a technical thing. Now, I promised you that I would show you the illustrations. This is, I'm reading the Snowflake Collector, which forms part of Eden by FREI, but I'm reading it from the illustrated edition, which has illustrations by Diego Cassia, and between chapters 2 and 3, there is indeed a double spread, and this is what it looks like. And chapter 3 is called I Need to Know How to Collect Snowflakes. While he knew well how to craft wooden cases, and for these wooden cases build sturdy boxes, and for the sturdy boxes, many as there would be, construct a formidable shed, and had the tools in his hut, and the fir trees on his land by the stream to make all these things, and while he also possessed a diamond glass cutter, and knew where to find good solid flat glass to cut into precisely dimensioned plates of 3 inches by 1, over time in very large numbers, the Snowflake Collector did not know how to collect snowflakes. He had never before given any thought to the possibility that he might one day decide to collect snowflakes, and thus become the Snowflake Collector. But now that he had determined to do so, as certain and as irrevocable as if it had been set in stone, and yet, of course, from a wider, much longer perspective, as transient too, he felt compelled to research the matter in detail. It would have appealed to his great sense of distance, which he had so sought out, and which he so cherished, to undertake a long journey and walk down into the valley, and from there take the yellow bus to the very small town, and from there take a little red train to the nearest small city, and from there a bigger and faster and greener or whiter train to the bigger, though still fairly small city, and there go to the large stately library kept by the university, and ask a bespectacled and certainly not hostile, but perhaps slightly weary librarian for a book on snowflake collecting. But he knew that such an excursion, which entailed the expense of time and resources, was an unnecessary and therefore wasteful exertion. And while he did not believe that time could really be expended any more than it could be kept in a jar, he nevertheless found any temptation that might have drawn him from his valley and into the city, overpowered readily, easily, by the comfort and safety of his mountains. So, instead, he walked down to the inn an hour or so from his hut, in the outpost hamlet some few miles from the village, and there he was greeted with a smile by Yolanda, the waitress from the Ukraine. Yolanda had come from the Ukraine to find work here as a waitress, and she liked the landlord because the landlord was not interested in her. He mostly spent his time with his mostly young friends. Like everyone else, Yolanda knew the Snowflake Collector, although she, like everyone else, did not yet know that that's who he was. She greeted him with her smile that she never needed to force, and started pulling a dark ale for him, because in all the years she had known, or thought that she had known him, for nobody really knew him at all, he had never wanted anything other than a dark ale from the tap. "Is Janov around?" he asked her, having thanked her, as she brought the heavy beaker to him at the table in the corner with a small view out of the square window onto some very brown cow. "He is. I can call him for you if you like." "When he's not busy." The Snowflake Collector knew that Janor would not be busy now, because Janor was Yolanda's son of about 15, and he didn't like his peers down in the village too much. So he mainly kept himself to himself in his room, playing games on the computer, or writing songs which he never played to anyone, or fantasizing about traveling back in time to the past, or forward into the future, or being naked with an actress he had recently started to fancy. Janos came down directly when his mother asked him if he would, because he liked the Snowflake Collector, and although he didn't know yet that that's who he was either, he, unlike almost anyone else in the world, sensed that he did know him a bit. They both knew each other a bit, and they liked each other for knowing each other a bit, but not more, and for mainly leaving each other alone, but when necessary, being able to spend time in each other's company without ever having to say or do anything. Sometimes when he felt particularly bored or lonely or uncertain why he was even here, or just wanted to be out of his room, but not anywhere where there were people, but also not anywhere where there were none, Janor would stomp up that same path that the Snowflake Collector had just come down now, and simply sit outside his hut in the sun, or if there was no sun, then in the rain. It didn't matter to Janor whether there was sunshine or rain, or no rain but clouds. He liked sitting outside the Snowflake Collector's hut, because here he could sit in absolute peace, with no demands being made on him, and simply watch the world go by, which it didn't up here, because up here the world stood pretty much still. But Janov, much as the Snowflake Collector, knew, of course, that nothing stood still, that everything was in motion always, and while Janos did not find this either disconcerting or comforting, he had little need in his life yet for disconcertion or comfort. He nevertheless found it soothing. And sometimes the Snowflake Collector would already be sitting there too, and they would nod at each other and perhaps mutter hello, though with hardly any tone to their voice at all, and then sit there. And sometimes the Snowflake Collector would not be around, but would find him there and join him, and they would similarly nod at each other, or, not expending any unnecessary breath on words, perhaps mutter hello, perhaps not even that, but sit there in great silence, which they both so greatly appreciated, Janosch quite as much as the Snowflake Collector. Over the years that Janosch had come to sit with the Snowflake Collector, there would have been occasional short conversation, sometimes perhaps inside the hut, over a glass of schnapps, or with a slice of Bündnerfleisch. And so the Snowflake Collector knew that if he ever found himself in need of any information at all, the person to ask was Janosch, because Janosch spent most of his waking hours, when he wasn't sitting with him here in front of his hut, or in his very small kitchen, on his smartphone or his computer, and he therefore had access, any time, night or day, to all the knowledge in the world, if perhaps not all of its wisdom. Janosch sat down, and they nodded at each other their familiar nod that did not demand any words. And the Snowflake Collector said, to the querying glance of the youth, who in spite of his pain never once betrayed any sorrow, I need to know how to collect snowflakes. And that is it for today. We will be heading on to the next chapter, the fourth chapter, in 2 days' time, in real time. Today is Wednesday, the 2nd of November. So I will see you again either on Wednesday or any other time whenever you find this video and feel inclined to watch the next one, if indeed you do. And if you do, which I of course hope you may, then I will see you again. I look forward to that. Till then, take very good care of yourself and of the people around you. Love and let love, and see you very soon. Bye-bye.